Well, maybe the next podcast we have you on will just be us stretching. Stretch with sidecar leader.
Speaking of stretching, that's a great segue.
Yeah.
I was telling Nathan, I know that you guys are just getting to know each other, but I was telling him, like, one of the things I've always loved about, I think I've grown to appreciate more in the last couple of years, getting to know you more and hanging out with you. Like, you have an incredible grit and resilience about you, but it's wrapped in humility. That was the thing that we kind of said. Like, sometimes you meet some leaders that have this grit and drive and whatever,
and they feel like a bulldozer.
Yeah. And man, you just have such a humility and
kindness.
You don't come across brash, but I know you're a great leader. And then what's weird is, like, he's sitting here like this, but you should hear this brother preach. I mean, you can preach, man. But I do. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit, and we can talk about whatever you want to today. But I want to talk to you a little bit, starting off, about that resilience. How did you develop that as a leader? I mean, you're leading a church now, which is, how old is the church?
It'll be 43 this October.
Wow.
And you've been there for how long?
8.
So you took over this church. You've obviously had to lead a lot of change, maybe culture, different things, without tearing down the steeple and running people off, honoring the past. So I know that you've had to have some resistance in that.
For sure.
And, you're in California, so you had to walk through COVID, and I know that. I left. Mm-hmm. You stayed.
The building helped.
Yeah. But you have a resilience. And so how did you develop that? And just speak to that a little bit.
That's a great question. I think there's an element of, I think, starting out, like, you're reflecting back. I think every stage of even growth has a new level of challenge that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
For us, when we took over, church was about 200 or so people. Older church. My first board meeting, we were negative 90 grand operational in the year, hitting October.
Wow.
And believing for a move of God. And yet the staff culture was pretty unhealthy. There was average age of the church was like 56 years old. I was 29 at the time, and this was the era we wore skinny jeans, ripped, and all that kind of stuff. And so I think in any, like, especially transition, I'll go there. When you're transitioning something, it takes a level of resiliency, but you have to, especially as young, and maybe this is for younger people too, you have to have humility. Like, you don't know what you don't know. There is a knack, there's a gifting that comes from the Lord, right? We understand that, but you have to understand, like, my approach, I think, in leading was a little slower than, like, you just referenced the bulldog or whatever. That's on the inside of me. Like, there's like this, but I actually, like, I genuinely care about people. And I think for me, my greatest, I've been on the other side. Yeah. So I've been as the recipient of what it's like to be on the other side of certain types of leadership. And I think had I not gone through that, it would have been really easy to have become right what you were on the other side of. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to go through it. You have to experience it. Like, in our story, my wife and I's ministry story, we've been around a lot of great movements and leaders and that kind of stuff. But you're on the other side of some stuff that you're just like, ooh. Yeah. And I think I'll say this. Especially even like to younger leaders, it's really easy as your influence grows, for those that even are serving a part of a movement, as your influence grows, you get opportunity and you'll see things that you don't like. But there comes a crossroad where you will now have the opportunity to benefit from the things that you don't like. And I think there's a test that comes there. Yeah. Like, it's really easy to hate the thing until you benefit from the thing you hate. And I think there's a real test there.
Wow.
Right? And so I think learning those dynamics and just like, okay, who do we want to be? What type of person do we want to be? How do we want to make people feel? And yet still keeping your guard and knowing. It's that whole thing. It's nothing new, but that whole fighting for health, I mean, unapologetic health. Yeah. God, search my heart. Make sure I'm going in. Yeah. I'm going in pure. Yeah. I'm going in, God, with the right motives, right? And it's not always been right. Like, I'd be the first to admit, have gone in and messed too many things up to count, right? Yeah. So anyways, I think that's a dynamic, but the resiliency piece, to me, I've heard growing up, every leader preacher that I've ever respected that has built something over the long haul, that has stayed in it,
Yeah.
the common thing was just keep showing up, just keep getting up, keep being consistent, right? Don't do anything stupid, and just keep showing up. And you hear these war stories,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, well, that's crazy. And then you have to go through a war story yourself,
Yep.
right? And so, like, even heading into this podcast recording that we're doing, right? We just redid our whole auditorium, spent some money, we rebranded to this whole thing, right? And it, like, this was something that was in our heart 7 years ago,
Right.
but we're now just doing it, 7 years later, taking people on a journey and a process. And you get an email or whatever, disgruntled people, and it's, you're like, oh my gosh, it just rips you apart, and you have this inside of you where you're like, you're discouraged, you're all that type, but just keep showing up, keep loving people, right? Do it from the purity of your heart.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's
That's
really
so
good.
good.
While you were talking about, man, I could go in so many directions with this. When you're talking about being on the receiving side of that,
Yep.
there was this question that someone, it may have been Brad Cooper from New Spring. I think it was him that said this. He said, a good question to ask the people that you lead is, what's it like to be on the other side of me?
Yep.
And because
that's an Andy Stanley right there.
Is it Andy?
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
a scary question to ask.
it's a scary question to ask, but people are feeling, they're feeling the other side of you. They're feeling that. So it's like knowing that. Like I remember one time there was a leader that they came in, asked me to do something. I said, "Yep, I got you." And then I went to go execute what they asked me, but it wasn't in the right timing for them.
Yep.
And they just man, it rubbed them, and they made me feel terrible. And I was so mad. I was this young pastor. I was so mad. I went and got in my car, and in the middle of it was like we had 4 services, and it was after the first service. I was like, I'm leaving. And I just went home. I didn't say anything to anybody. I went home. I'm like, just took my ball and went home to play, And I remember how I felt. And I actually went home. Maybe I was depressed. I got in my bed. I was like, I'm going to go take a nap.
Yep.
And I was laying in my bed, and I had this thought. I thought, number one is, I don't want to ever make somebody feel like that.
Yep.
Number one. And then number two, I think that was my thought, which is a good thought. But then I felt like the Lord said, but you don't know what their day was like.
Yep.
It's good.
And then I just stopped, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to choose grace.
Yep.
And that leader called me a few hours later. And they didn't know that I left. They probably would have fired me. But they called me, and they said, I want to say I'm so sorry for how I treated you. It wasn't right. I just had something going on with one of my children and my spouse, and it was a hard day. And I treated you wrong, and I'm going to ask you to forgive me. So it's all good. And I learned a lot of lessons there. But one of the things I did take away is, like, I want to make sure whenever I have these moments where someone that's in leadership above me and they make me feel a certain way that I don't like, or that hurts, or that's painful, I need to always keep that, not hold on to it as resentment, but as okay, I don't want people to feel like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want people to feel belittled, or,
I think that's one of the silver linings you can take when you go through
Yeah.
situations like that. It's like, this sucks right now,
Yeah.
but also I can learn that I don't want to replicate this for someone else.
Yeah.
You talked about so much in that answer that I want to dive into. One of the things, I mean, even the example that you gave of the rebrand, that was something you guys had in your heart 7 years ago, but you waited until now to do that. You took over a church that's 43 years old now, I think is what you said, 8 years ago. So, at that point, there's nearly 4 decades of history, tradition, culture, ownership that people feel to it, all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think whether you're in any role, whether you're taking over a team, a ministry, a department, it's easy to come in and think that you know everything.
Right.
I need to change all of these things because I see all of these things that need to be changed right now. And on one hand, kind of have maybe, I don't know if disrespect is the right word, but maybe just disdain for what has been. Yeah. And coming in thinking you have all the answers for what should be. And to your point, making too many changes at once. How have you found a way of, in leading this transition, kind of honoring what has been,
Sure.
while still knowing that you are the leader that God has put for this next season? Yeah. So while I still want to honor what has been, we need to take this to where God is moving us as well.
Sure. No, that's a great question. I think that there's the silver lining is, again, the heart of the people, the heart typically of a of good-hearted people within your church is it comes back to the gospel. They want to see people saved. They want to see people baptized. They want to see families restored, right? They want to see their church filled, right? They want to see life happening. And it's the philosophies and all that kind of stuff are ever changing. And there's always new and better ways. I think for me, what I had to learn was I came up in this era of like every conference that I ever went to, church was always like church leadership, system strategy, and this is what's working, just do this, plug and play.
Yeah.
And so the first part of your ministry, you're like, well, I'll just do that and the things will work. Well, there was some fruit for sure, but you find yourself like, this really isn't me. This really actually isn't producing the fruit that we're hoping for.
Yeah.
And so you introduce a lot of new things. The new things don't necessarily work. And then you're constantly introducing new things. And I don't think people are always like, okay, then they're going to stop buying into the new things.
Right.
And so
They don't
I think
trust the new
slowing down and being like prayerfully, right? So like one of the things I love about like Pastor Dave, we mentioned him earlier, is I started getting around him and less on strategies and principles. And yes, he can teach all those and he does a great job on that. But that man told us what it was like to just go and get on the throne room in your prayer room and get on your knees before the Lord and get a specific strategy for your people, get a word from God. And I think I can't stress how important that is.
Yeah.
And the effective things are probably going to be things that maybe aren't being celebrated at the moment on these conference stages or whatever, because there's something new and fresh that God wants to do through your expression. Now you can take from some of the principles and things that are great. It's not a knock on that, but you got to understand a lot of these things that have been effective for them, these guys got on their knees from the Lord.
Yeah.
And so I think what I had to learn was going slower and getting on the knees and not just taking the plug and play stuff and still being able to say, that's amazing that worked for them. What are some things that we can take from that, but put effectively into our context?
Yeah.
That's actually us and actually produces fruit of what we're trying to do. So I think once I learned that, I started seeing more buy-in in some of the changes that we would introduce. And I think the other thing, to your point, we were talking about, like, hats off to that leader for picking up the phone and calling you. I've been on the side and have experienced several leaders where, I mean, these people are incredible teachers of whether it's culture, whether it's great leadership, the Bible, but they're actually really bad at implementing it.
Yeah.
So it's like you get up and you're like, man, that was an incredible teaching. I talked with a guy the other day, and without going into too much detail of his story as he's navigating through with his pastor had just got done doing something, and what his pastor shared was brilliant. But I know this guy's story, and I know he's walking through, and he's like, yeah, that was pretty hard for me. Because what you're hearing in philosophy and you're hearing in teaching come across isn't always how. And so I think one of the things for me is you got to be humble enough, like to actually listen to the people around you, some trusted people, like who can actually speak to you very honestly, sit you down, even if they're a subordinate, even if they're on my lead team, and they might be a friend, and I might be the oversight and boss. I'm still very open, and I asked the question at lunch today. I got a couple of guys with me. I said, hey, what are a couple things that if you were in my shoes, you would do differently? Or how can I not just help you better, but what would you be doing differently if you were me? And actually listening to them.
Yeah,
and actually taking what you would do differently. So I think there's something about that, because we came out of this era where it was like, you can't be friends with your staff. You know, like this, where it was like, you know, my best friends are so-and-so over here and so-and-so over there. And so I'm like, you get together like less than once a year, and you don't even really talk, and you're like, I don't know, how can I be a friend with somebody if I'm not, like, there's not a level of consistency. They're like, do they really know you? And I heard a guy 7-8 years ago who just said, as he's leading his church, he just vowed that he was going to have his best friends be ones that are a part of his staff. And it just, something just clicked for me, where I was like, you can do that.
Yeah.
And you can lead effectively with friends and actually take input and continually get better. So I think there's something to both of those worlds that I think have been helpful in my walk.
Well, there's, you know, the thing is to do what you're talking about is amazing, but a lot of people opt for the distant, leadership style, because that's actually really easy.
For sure.
The hard thing is to do what you're talking about, the duality. We talk about the duality of relationships that the pastor has all the time. Like your pastor, boss, manager, friend, whatever. And it's like to manage that and to do that well, it can be messy and it can be hard. It can be a challenge. A lot of people just don't want to fight for that,
We talk about it a lot we face that.
Yeah.
We're business partners with Sidecar, where you're the lead pastor of the church. I'm the executive pastor at. So there's that like one pastor congregant to like the organizationally boss staff piece, and then friends outside of that as well. And there are times when we're talking to each other and like maybe you've got church hat on and I've got friend hat on.
Yep.
And we will both do that at times, and so I think it takes a lot more maturity to do it that way, and a lot of grace to do it that way.
That's
because you will get it wrong.
And we've gotten it wrong numerous times.
Yeah.
For sure.
But the key has been like, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like one time we really needed to get on some work in a meeting, and Nathan goes, "Hey, we cannot move a step further until we have this conversation." And I was like, "All right, let's do it." And so we had it, and it was hard.
Not a fun conversation.
No, not at all. But you know what actually happened is it actually made us closer.
Yeah.
Yes.
More trust.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't want to do that.
No.
It's
painful. It's easier to plow through staff and just keep a distance and fire people and bring new people on. And
100%.
I mean, just the turnover rate. And I think in that though, you never change really as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it really you growing, or is it just you growing something? And I think you can grow something without you growing. Yeah. And I think there's a dynamic there where it's like, I think sometimes where you see that these things outpace some of these leaders. It's like, man, I don't just want the thing to grow. I genuinely, I want to be the best that I can be. And I've had like the conversation you just shared, a buddy of mine who's on our lead team at staff 7-8 years ago, literally sat me down as a brother and called me out on some things. And you know what, like in your pride, you're like, well, but no, there was some really helpful, maybe life-saving, marriage-saving, family-saving type truth there that had you not taken, and in that moment, that was so hard for him, so hard for me.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, I think when you press into that, there is just something, because it comes from the heart of, I genuinely care. You know when somebody does, you know when somebody doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know when you're like, hey, and people, the way that they phrase it, it's because I care about you, and you're like, if you have to tell me that, I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
Because if you show it, you trust, and so I think you learn some of that along the way. But you gotta be humble enough and mutual humility to be like, none of us are perfect. We're trying to continue to look like Jesus here, and it's a journey, man. So
how do you foster that with the staff, with volunteers, like cascading throughout the organization, throughout the church?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it looks different in seasons because as you grow, your staff grows, all that type of stuff, you can't really effectively do it to the way that you want to do it for everybody. And so it shifts and changes over time. And so like we've got like open door policy. My office doors open a lot. And if you need to talk, like even if I'm working on something and it's just, I will pause what I'm working on to sit down and just have a conversation, even if it's not a scheduled meeting. Right. And I think it creates a little bit of just like, I need to talk about something, and rather than somebody holding it and festering, let's just talk. Let's talk.
Yeah.
I'm a guy, like, it's the way that I'm wired. I hate checklists, because it's like, if something's on my checklist and it's not done, I got to do it. Why would I just not do it now? And so I'm like, man, if we need to, let's talk about it now. What's going on? Right. And I think for me, that's been helpful in creating a space and a culture for people like, hey, that's fine. Let's talk about it.
And because you're modeling that, do you feel like because you're modeling, it's just multiplying throughout your team? So they everyone kind of flows like that?
Yep.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. What do you need from the people on your team in order to have that relationship with you where it's not just pastor, staff member, but there's also like, you can have a friendship outside of that as well? Like what does that other person need to have, or maturities or qualities that they need to have?
Yeah. I don't always want to talk church.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be some level of basis where it's like, we can talk about the Lakers.
Yeah.
We can talk about golf. We can talk about family.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes, like, and I've been in these spaces, it's like, the only thing we actually have in common is church. And I get that that's some level,
Yeah.
but can we find another basis of something to just talk about that's like not the just, the church space stuff at times or whatever your profession might be. I think it's just helpful. Like, can we hold a conversation on something else?
Yeah, I mean, we play golf together on Fridays. We're not as good as you.
No.
Our handicap is probably 20.
And we also don't stretch as much as you.
That's
so we feel way
probably the
worse
key.
afterwards.
not stretching. But so we play golf, and we're intentional about this. Whenever we go to play golf on Fridays, we're like, we're not talking about any of that stuff, and we just respect that. Or if there's something that needs to get done really quick, it's like, hey, we're gonna totally unplug, but just really quick, boom, touch base on this, and it's done. And it's so refreshing, like what you're saying, that we have golf as friends.
Yep.
Yeah. Or if we're going to a concert together or something.
Yeah.
We're hanging out. We're
Right.
not going to bring up the work problem that arose that day.
Yeah. And the lion's share of well, at least I can say for me, I know that you kind of have a lot of other jobs and stuff too, but the lion's share of my life is church. I've been thinking about this
all the time. Yep.
Yeah.
forever.
You're never not thinking.
So it's not that I don't care, but it's like you do have to have a space and a place where you can, like fly fishing is the other one.
Yeah.
We go fly fishing.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about leadership.
I don't want to talk about organizational development, baby. I want to catch a big trout.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, but
And
that's
I would say too, like, don't always bring me the problem and the issue and what's happening there and what's happening is like, solve it and then tell me what, like, hey, I fixed this.
That's great.
Like, you know what I mean? I think sometimes it's like, and I know that you need maybe somebody to process with, but at some level, I'm like, I hope that I'm a decent enough leader to empower people on how to deal and handle some of the, rather than just always having this conversation. Because the last thing you want is on a Friday, you're playing golf and you're laughing, and then to bring up some issue of something that's going on, just ruins your weekend.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want to.
Do you think oftentimes there's, and maybe this is an insecurity, but do you think that sometimes people may bring you the problem, even if they do solve it, they bring it to you because they want you to sense or feel their value that they can add or that they're adding or whatever. And they're finding a little, rather than just solving it. And you, because my favorite thing is whenever you solve problems as the executive pastor of the church, he'll solve problems and he never tells me about it. And I find out some other way. And I was like, that's pretty awesome.
That's
like,
the best way.
He solved that and he just shielded me from it. And he just did it, But I think sometimes maybe it's an insecurity that people do that.
Most definitely. And I think so. Yeah, the desire to be seen, we all want that. Like I struggle, like I want to be seen, right? There's that humanity.
I want to show you the value.
Yeah. Look at what I
think I did that a lot when I was younger.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Too.
For sure. You're trying to win the approval of whoever it is that you're under. And I think that's a dynamic. And I think there's a space though too, where it's hard. Like when you're dealing with difficulty and you're dealing with people challenges and nuances and pushback and opposition or whatever that might be, that's hard just as a human, right? And I think sometimes people they need somebody to talk to and process with.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you're that guy. Right. And so I think it's navigating that, but to the whole point, right? Creating a space and a place.
One of the things that we try to do with that, and I think this is a good framework, is like, especially if it's young leaders or new team members, they're going to come to you with problems and stuff. But so what we like to do, let's just say it's a creative director or whatever, production director. They come to you and they're like, here's this problem. What do you want me to do? Or how should I fix this or whatever? We look back at them and we go, what would a great creative director do in this situation?
Yep.
And just put it there. And then, I have this story about one time when that happened and this guy, he's stressing out. He was brand new on the job. And he looks back at me after I said that. He goes, a great creative director would ask his pastor what he should do in this situation. And I was like, no, man. I was like, I want you to think about it. What do you think you should do?
Yeah.
And he said what he was going to do. And I was like, go be great.
Yep.
And then the next day we processed it and a feedback loop.
I also think one of the things that I find helpful as someone who's not in the number one seat is you're really good about you really prioritize our like one-on-one, our working one-on-one throughout the week. Mm-hmm. And so I know that if something comes up, I don't have to text you about it in the moment.
Yep.
Because we have a space that's designated.
Yeah, it's every week.
Yep.
And so it's not like all throughout the week, hopefully, you're just getting like text after text. That's like, here's a problem, here's a problem, here's a problem. It's like, no, there's actually a space where like I can, if it's not urgent, it can wait.
Yeah.
for us to happen. I know one of the
Well, the other thing you do really well is, and maybe you can speak to this, but you have always come to me and been like specifically not with Sidecar, but with the church side of it. You've come to me and been like, hey, what problems do you want to know?
Yeah.
Or what?
Great question.
What I want to make sure I'm taking things. You always say I want to make sure I'm taking things off your plate and mine, but you just let me know what you want to know, and I'll let you know that, and then the rest you just kind of.
Because I know you care, and this is again just learning in relationship. I've learned this about you. You care a lot about creativity, experiences, some of those things that you want to speak into. Whereas another pastor, they might not care less about any of that stuff, and they just want someone else to make the decision. Right. So I think it's also, you've got to know what's important to your leader and just what's not important.
And I think what is
that's good.
The space that is their unique grace and the prophetic mandate that is on their life.
Yeah. Speak to that a little bit.
So 1 Timothy 4, right? There's Paul's writing to Timothy, and he says, right, do not neglect the gift that was laid upon you when the elders placed their hands upon you, right? So this is in a time, right, where there's crazy stuff going on in the culture. It's creeped into the church. They've got terrible doctrine everywhere. He's a young leader. All of these facets of discouragement rising up, and the encouragement is to not neglect the gift that was given to you when the elders placed their hands upon you. I actually think in times of chaos, as you are in a growing movement, there is the demonic side is to actually pull you out of that grace gift, to pull you out of that prophetic mandate, to get doing on all the other things. Mm-hmm. And there's times where you have to do that stuff. But I think my error has been, I have fallen into the other things and put the prophetic mandate piece on the back of your life. And I think a lot of those attacks and a lot of the challenges will come specifically into what that prophetic mandate piece is in and around your life. So I've had to keep coming back to that. For me, when I was 16 years old, I was at a youth conference. Pastor Jensen Franklin preached this message, and this was back in old school church. There's like 150 students in the room, and he preached his guts out, and I'm just moved. He calls for a tarp to come up on the stage, has a blue tarp placed on the stage, gets a bucket of olive oil, dumps a bucket of olive oil on the tarp, starts a prayer line on the sides, and calls for everybody in that gathering to walk through it. He stops the service. He points me out, and he prophesies preaching upon my life. From 16 years old, I wanted to do nothing besides preach the gospel from that moment on. Wow. So there's these moments. And so in all of us has these unique, and you know what it is, those moments where it was God breathed, it was people prophesied it through the word of God, right? And so I think coming back to those moments and being reminded, and there's something about that, because when you are operating in that prophetic mandate upon your life, it is where there's the most fruit coming from your life, the most fruit coming from your ministry. And I think the tendency when things are going to crazy is to spend so much time on the other stuff that you neglect that gift. So there is a pool, I think, in every facet, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that tries to pull you away from that prophetic mandate upon your life, where there is the most effective ministry piece. And I think that when we spend our time on all these other things and we neglect that prophetic mandate, we don't see the fruit. We're not as joyful as we once were, and it's easy to forget. It really is easy to forget. And then you're going to get questioned. You'll get attacked. Right around that unique gift. And I think it could create an insecurity, which is another piece. And so we become, in our pride, we take a false humility and we don't operate in our gifting. And I would say this, that prophetic mandate came from the Lord. It didn't come from you. Yeah. It didn't so you have a due diligence to be faithful with what God has given you. And I actually think it takes greater humility to be so confident in the Lord and what he has given you to stay in that prophetic mandate space. To keep moving forward. Yeah, that's man. I could sit on that for a while.
I know. I can tell you've got some heat on
you need to write a little. Have you preached a message on that?
I spoke to some pastors recently, but you need. I've lived in this space, man. I was 29 when we took a church. Average age was 56, and I preach the same way I preach now. I preach when there was 40 people in the room. Yeah, and you can imagine, right? And I like fighting for preachers in space, because it was powerful, loud, passionate, spirit-filled preaching that changed my life. Yeah. And there's such a rise right now in the deep intellectual, soft-spoken thinking space, and that is incredible. I'm grateful for it, but it's just not me,
It's not you.
right? It's not what changed my. And if I were to operate that way, it's ineffective. I've got to be true to who I am, but knowing that they're stylistically, you're young, you preach loud, you dress the way you dress. You're gonna take shots and lumps, and it's to try to knock you off. But I'm like, I can't not. It's that burning. It's that fire shut up in your bones, right? And it's like, I've got to do this. I've got to preach this word, and my heart and desire is that people would have that encounter with Jesus, because that's. I don't ever remember a message. I don't know the content of almost any message that was spoken, but I know how it made me feel and who it led me to. And the ones that have led me to Jesus have changed my life, and that's, I think, that desire piece. And so, I want to spend my time focused in and around that, and that encouragement, especially those who have the public gifts, right? There's an element of upfront public gifts that God has graced, and you'll either shy away from that or become too dependent upon that, right? There's a tension there as well. But I would just say, you go for it. You keep preaching as hard as you possibly can. That whole old saying, light yourself on fire, man. Get lit on fire and just burn. People will come. People will want to get caught on fire.
I love that, man. I was while you were saying that, I was thinking, I heard the statement, one of the greatest failures in life is succeeding at something you were never called to do.
Yep. So good.
And it's like what you're saying, I love it, is you've got to find what is that gift, that prophetic calling, that thing that God's put on me uniquely for me.
Yep.
And just be strong in that grace and lean into that.
Yep.
And and when you do, like, it functions almost like a natural vetting process as well. Like the people that are not supposed to follow your leadership, then if it's church, whatever, then they'll go somewhere else where they're supposed to be there. And then the people that are, like, you're going to attract those people that, like, you have actually, there's that prophetic mantle and mandate on to minister and to lead those people and impact those people. And it's like, that's when you're strong in that, and God brings those people to you. That's why there's fruit. That's why, like, to use Pastor Dave, the river's on it, it's like, so that's awesome.
But I also think for people who aren't in the number one seat, then the same way there's some prophetic mandate that God has given them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're choosing the opportunities where you're able to flow in that, knowing that you're not always going to be able to. The reverse side of that is, I think you have to fight for what is your leader's prophetic mandate. And how do you keep them in their high contribution lane, the lane that only they can run in, the lane that God has called them to run in. Because the church will benefit the most when they do.
That's great.
You as a staff member will benefit the most when you do. And a lot of times I think that does mean laying down your preferences as a staff member or executive pastor, whatever that role is, so that you can keep them in that lane.
So true. And I would say even broader than that, like, do pastors in church, like, create a space where that environment is being cultivated for people. As I'm like, man, how many, like, in our church have just never had an experience, and part of it, we just never create an environment for it. Allow the worship music to go a little bit. Dismiss the service who wants. We're going to stay back, and if you need prayer, if you need personal ministry, if you need a word from God today, don't leave. Just come forward. We're going to flow. And I just think that those moments for people are so marking that you just can't shake, and then it puts some fire in their bones. And so I think we also got to come back a little bit to some of these messy moments of church and embracing those again.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't remember a lot over the last 25 years of services. Like, I don't remember creative elements. Although I love creativity. I don't remember, I could fill in the blank with all these things, but I remember powerful sermons that were, the power of God was on it. And it, like what you were describing, I also remember powerful lingering in the presence of God worship moments. I mean, I could tell you story after story after story. They mark you, they transform you, they change you. And the tension that we are always in is that, yes, we have a value, and we were talking to Dave about this. We have this value for structure and systems and excellence and all these things. And so we hold that right here. But we also know that we need to get people in the presence of God and to be in these moments that will mark them. And we don't want to program that out. We want to make sure that we're creating this space for people to encounter that. But man, Kevin, I love you so much, bro. And I can't wait to be back on the West Coast with you. Come play a little golf. Train me, teach me your ways. teach us some new stretches.
Yeah. We'll do the part 2 to this, and we'll just
That'd
all
be
be
fun.
stretching together.
Yeah, man. Love you so much. Thanks for being on here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Honor.
Great.